Hello, everyone. You just missed a really good conversation about naked versus clothed rats. So we're on a roll tonight. We're excited to join you. This is our first live show for Writers Need Help. And basically, we're wanting to take your questions and have just kind of an open-ended discussion about agents, agency contracts, why you might want an agent or why you might not want an agent and all of that stuff. So we're going to have a freewheeling conversation that might turn to naked rats at some point. But we're also going to be taking questions. So if you have questions, get those in the chat. But let's go around and just see who's here. So I'll hand it over to Scarlett. Just give us a quick intro.
I'm Scarlett St. Clair. I'm the author of A Touch of Darkness and a few other Greek mythology retellings. Yay.
Yay. I will get skeleton handout for you and wait until yes, the skeleton hand always comes out. Jenny, what about you?
I have my actual hand.
What? Yeah.
I'm Jenny. I'm the author of a book coming out this fall. It'll be my first. It's called Dark and Shallow Lies. Comes out in August.
Yeah. She's a baby. She's a debut baby this year.
A baby.
A little baby. Alicia.
Hi everyone. I'm Alicia Welliver and I'm on submission.
Woo! She's a real baby. A real
baby.
Yes, and I'm so sorry that I will never do that accent again. I promise. Never happening again. Never.
A baby.
Yeah, I know. Now we're never gonna stop. It's terrible. So yeah, we are just gonna talk about. To introduce myself, I am Kim Benchella, author of traditionally published middle grade novels, and this one my latest one, The Secret Life of Sam, was named A. Kirkus Best Book of 2020. So I'm plugging that in there.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that.
I slid that in there. No, it's, it's old news.
There's so many great things. She just loses track of all of them.
Yeah, right. Well, my dog did have a good poop today, so we'll put that in the list. So it's really good. Anyway, agency contracts. Let's get started. So why might you need an agent, or why might you decide that you don't need an agent? So for me, I'll just go in with saying that, as I mentioned, I write for middle grade. And I think traditional is kind of the way to go. Although every time I say that middle grade would be really hard to self-publish, I hear people are like, oh, but I have this friend who's doing it really successfully. I'm like, okay, it sounds hard to me, because mainly you're selling to teachers and schools and librarians, and it's really easier to get in with traditional. So if you're going to go traditional, you kind of need to have that literary agent as your advocate. And that was kind of why I decided initially to go on that path. But not everyone's going to have that same experience. So I know, Scarlett, you've been kind of toying with it, but what are your thoughts so far?
On having an agent. I was looking because I thought I had asked my people for some questions, and now I can't find them. But I've gone back and forth on whether or not I think I need an agent. And every time I think I need an agent, something comes along that I negotiate myself. And it's not always easy. And I always refer to this group of people about okay, what does this mean? Because I remember when I first got my first contract, my first foreign rights contract. Actually, it was Tantor audiobooks. I was like, Kim, what does your contract look like? I don't know what to do. But yeah, so the more I kind of go through it, the more I feel as though I would only want an agent if they were going to really be a hardcore advocate for me. And I've not found anyone who has really been willing to do that for me. And sometimes I feel like the more conversations I have with agents, the more discouraged I am. So for me, it really hasn't been necessary, and my success hasn't been hurt because I don't have an agent.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for people who may not have heard, because we did sort of our first episode when we thought we were going to be a podcast, and we're like, we're just going to do live on YouTube. So we kind of talked about our past to publication, but like, so refresh people just briefly on like what your journey has been and how you're in this position that you're like, do I need an agent? Do I not? I'm getting all these foreign deals and stuff, because not all like indie published authors are going to be getting these foreign offers, right?
Yeah, so I started self-publishing. I'm a self-published author, and the only traditional deals I have is because of my success self-publishing. So I started self-publishing when I was in 2015, I guess, but got really successful in 2019 during quarantine. And then sort of around that time, I started getting offers from, Tantor and then other foreign rights. And a lot of other things, Bookish Box deals and stuff like that. And so it's been a wild ride, and it's been kind of crazy to sort of negotiate that. Even with the Bookish Box, that came along with having to negotiate how much money I wanted per book. And I was so uncomfortable with it. And I think that says something about how men are so, my husband was like, this is so easy, just ask for this much. And I was like, but I feel bad. And I was like, what the fuck? Why do I feel bad about this? Anyway.
Well, this is why I streamed it on a whole new channel and not my regular channel. That is for children.
I write adult novels.
We made it 5 minutes.
We did pretty good. So
I did, but I went live today, and I was just like, I knew I was going to do it. Anyways, I was like, why is it so hard to negotiate? But so that's kind of the downside, is you don't have an agent to sit there and be like, you're worth this much. But I have a traditional publisher who wants to publish like a new series, like connected to my Greek mythology books. And I am absolutely dedicated to getting a good advance on that, because I deserve it. So you start to learn sort of what you what you deserve.
I guess you haven't heard back like on that yet, or
no, because she was like, we're working on a deal for you. And I was like, we'll see, because I have a feeling.
Yeah, I know. No. I have a feeling, well, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they'll come up with something spectacular. But I mean, at least so you're kind of learning now, like what would be useful for you. So it's kind of nice that it came, like maybe these offers came a little bit later, because if they had come early on, then you might have just like jumped on them, right? But yeah, the foreign rights is a big deal, I will say, in terms of what the benefits of having an agent can be, like having that team to negotiate on your behalf. But Ginny, so I know you've had a lot. I mean, it's all new, but they've been doing like a lot on your behalf. So what would you say, like, what have you found to be the benefits of working with an agent?
Well, the main benefit for me of working with an agent is that I don't know anything about how any of this works. So if I did not have an agent, I would be totally lost. But that's why one of the reasons that I wanted to go the traditional route from the beginning, just because I knew that I did not know enough to be my own marketing team and my own manager and my own planner and all of that. I mean, I have a huge amount of respect for Ashley, because she does it. She does it so well. But so I needed someone who could really get in there and like, show me, point me in the right direction at least. So I found someone who has just been a fabulous advocate. We've only been together for 9 months, but it's going really well. So far so good. And he's just amazing. So as far as like contract negotiation and foreign rights and all of this stuff that I have no idea what I'm doing, it's been really reassuring to know there's somebody in my corner who really does know what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. And that's a big thing for me, is that it's not just this agent, but you have the whole agency behind you, and you have like the legal team that's vetting your contracts, which, to be fair, it can make things take a long time, but it needs to be vetted, right? And so it's like you have this whole team now that's doing that for you. But you also have the foreign rights agents that are posted like throughout the world and are working with your agency on your behalf. And that's something that's hard to get by yourself. And I know for me too, with my film agent, about a month after I signed with my literary agent, I got this call and she's like, hey, this agent from UTA wants to sign on as your film agent. Do you want to have like the phone call with her? What do you think? And so it's just like these connections kind of came through that initial contact person, and trying to negotiate something like Hollywood is certainly not something that I would try to do by myself. I think it's a lot more complicated than some of the foreign rights contracts that might come in, for sure. So yeah, there are those benefits. But Alicia, you are early days and you're working with your agent and you're going out. So what has your experience been like?
So far it's been great. So what I really like is what Jenny was saying, someone who knows the things that I don't know, and like that I don't know that I don't know. And since I've been on sub now for a couple months, so me and my agent are really talking about like other projects, and I like the career guidance. And that's another reason why I wanted an agent, was I have a lot of ideas, but like not all of them are sellable, and not all of them will anyone else think are interesting other than me. So it's really been fun, like getting career guidance from someone, and like, I don't know, I ask her branding questions, and I feel like she's guiding me slowly through my career. Not that she's guiding me slowly, but that this career is slow. At least for me. Kim and Ginny both like exploded onto the traditional.
It's very slow. I mean, that's what publishing is, though. It's this, once one thing happens really fast, and then the slowest like that you could ever have, just molasses flowing down an incline. It takes forever, and then all this stuff happens, and that's kind of what publishing is. So yeah, that can be really interesting. But yeah, I think if you get an agent that thinks strategically, that is really helpful. And so that's one thing, like my agent's really good at thinking strategically, and like based on your career up until this point, what could we sell for the best deal, and like being able to give you that information. And yeah, and then you kind of just run with it from there. So I think that's another really cool thing. And also, I know we talked kind of about how our expectations tend to be really low in the beginning because we don't know anything. And I think that's where an agent can help too, because I know that when we went into when my first book went on sub, my expectation was that it would be like months later. And from just Googling stuff, I was like, oh, well, the range that you see is like, it could be like a $5,000 advance or something. I'm like, well, that's the lowest I saw, so that's probably what I'll get. That's my expectation. You know what I mean? And so if I had just been doing it myself and I went out and some publisher, like a small press or something, offered me $5,000 back then, I would have been like, awesome. And I wouldn't have known more. I wouldn't have known to ask for more, right? And so my agent was able, it did happen really fast in the beginning, because it ended up, we got a preempt offer in like 48 hours of going on submission, which like never, it was wild. And I remember my agent telling a story. She wrote a number on a like sticky thing and put it under a candle, because she's very like witchy and like spiritual, which I'm not, so it's hilarious. And like put it on there and like lit that candle, and that was the exact amount that it ended up selling for. So it was like pretty funny. But it was an amount that was like way, 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 way higher than my expectation. And if I hadn't actually had her, I would have not known how to set my expectations. So I think that's another bonus. But as we all know, people always talk about predatory agents or agent red flags, and like what to keep on the lookout for. And I actually linked in the notes below, SFWA has a page on their like writers beware thing all about literary agents and things to look out for. So that kind of goes through all of it. But I know the things that you always hear about, of course, if an agent's going to charge you a fee, that's not an upfront fee of some kind. That's not someone you want to sign with. If they have no contacts in the industry, obviously there are a lot of new agents that can be really great, but often they're with established agencies. So they're going to have those contacts because, they have to be able to do more than you can do for your book. So if this agent is just going to blanket send it out to people that they don't actually have contact, like people they haven't actually been networking with, that's something you could basically do yourself. Or if they're just going to send it out to like small presses, you could do that yourself. So you need someone that can do more than you could do for yourself. And obviously you want the commissions to be standard. So 15% on general work, 20% on foreign is typical. And I think one thing that I've always found really sketchy are when it's an agency that offers other services like paid editorial or paid help with self-publishing, which I know there are actually some like very legitimate agencies that do that now. But to me, it just feels a little sketch. Like personally, if I was going to self-publish like Scarlett, I think, kind of the whole point is like you're doing that yourself. And so when you get into paying someone to help you with that service, I personally wouldn't be interested in that. But there are legitimate ones that do it. But if they do, I would just like give them an extra, like double check and definitely ask around about that person. But what has anyone else, like as you were searching for agents, did you come up with, see Jennifer popped in, have you heard any other red flags that you think people should be aware of? I see Jenny considering.
Thinking. I can't think of anything that you didn't mention.
I could speak to the new agent stuff. Like what is, like how can you decide if a new agent is sketchy or real? Because my agent that I signed with was newer. She was like, she'd been an agent for like 6 months. When I got the email to set up a call with her. So, but like doing your research. So she had done an internship with a reputable literary agency. And then she was an agent and a foreign rights agent at a reputable literary agency. And now she's a full agent at another one. We moved to a different literary agency that's bigger, and I'm super excited about it. But so she didn't have like any sales yet when she offered representation. But when I talked to her and like I did research on the agencies she had interned with and who she was working with, and even the agents at the agency, to make sure, like, is she trained? Like, does she have the contacts that I need? Like Kim was saying, you want someone who's going to be able to talk, like have a relationship with an editor. Whereas like, if you're just like connecting yourself to someone who knows as many people as you do, then you're not really helping yourself. But yeah, so I've been really excited. She's already, her first sale was a 6-figure deal. So like now I'm like, well, yeah, I made the right choice. She's perfect.
She is really cool. Just having the conversation I had with her, she's just like, you can tell she's super passionate about the people she represents, and that's what you want.
Oh yeah, because that's
really
what you talk to, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's so funny. Small world.
Yeah, that's because of Alicia. So it is about who you know, honestly.
Yeah, I would definitely try to do some matchmaking there.
Yeah, absolutely. But you can always, like, my agent was a cold query, and I think a lot of people find their agent just from, they don't know anything. They didn't. I wasn't schmoozing people at like conferences or anything. I just sent a cold query letter to this person. Yeah, totally. I thought of something else and I can't remember. Oh yeah, just like you said, like your agent didn't have the sales or clients yet, but if they have, if they're more established, you should be able to contact their current clients and talk to them. And hopefully you can also see sales that they have made online. So that would be helpful, although not everybody's publisher's marketplace is available for free, but if it is, that's really helpful. I see we have a question from Jen, and yes, she did send me a question earlier talking about various things, including how easy is it to kind of navigate an eclectic career? So if you are someone who wants to write for all audiences or in multiple genres, how easy is that to navigate in general and with your agent? And kind of, for me, just to elaborate on my response, I think your agent's typically going to be very open to that. Like they want to do like you know, and this is my thing. I feel like as the author, you are 100% the guide of your career. And like, that's so important to remember. Like you are the one who guides your career, and you need to tell your agent, this is what I want my career to look like. And how can you help me make that happen? Because they are your gateway into the industry. And that is also just how it is. So absolutely. And you can check out though, like if right away you know that you're going to want to write picture books and adult novels, I mean, you do want to make sure like they represent that. It is possible. I have friends who have 2 different agents because they have one agent that does like their children's stuff and one agent that does their adult stuff. So that's possible as well. But it would be nice to have someone who does everything if you know that you're going to want to do everything. And so, yeah, I think agents, in my experience, are very open to it and to doing what you want to do with your career. The question is timing in terms of the industry. Because for me, the first manuscript that I sold was middle grade. But I had been writing a bunch of other stuff, and I had always intended to write for other audiences as well. But once you make a sale, first of all, my first one was a 2-book deal. So right there, I'm going to do 2 books, right? And then second of all, you have now opened a path for yourself in publishing. So it's going to be easier for me to sell a middle grade book than it is for me to sell anything else. So in terms of just where I allocate my time, yes, I also want to write for adults and young adults. But I know that I'm so much more likely to be able to sell a middle grade quickly. Like I already have a publisher. I've worked with 2 different publishers actually for middle grade. So I have these openings already where I can even sell it on a proposal, you know, potentially, as opposed to an entire manuscript. Because if I'm going to go for another audience, I have to now have the entire manuscript that we're shopping around. So a lot of times it's just, you know, things work really slowly. So you want to have those middle grades out that you're selling if that's what you started with, and then you can move on. And it's just all about timing for me. But what would you say? So Alicia, I'll send this to you first because you are currently working on stuff for different audiences with your agent, right?
Yeah. So the manuscript she signed me with was young adult, and then we reworked it for upper middle grade, and that is what is on submission right now. And when we discussed what I would work on next, she was really super excited about this adult idea I had. So I'm working on adult.
Yay!
Yeah. So she knew like from the call that I wanted to work in multiple age categories, but what the like overarching or like the connecting piece was the genre. Both the upper middle grade and the adult are historical fantasy. So I think she felt like we could like brand that and that like be across like the age range. And then I threw in another manuscript that is middle grade. I guess it's like paranormal adventure. It's like fake science. So, but she was really like excited about that too. And we're still discussing like where that fits with if we're branding for like the historical fantasy. But since I haven't sold anything yet, those paths are really open right now. So she's very open to like, let's see what lands, and then we'll discuss like path from there. But yeah, she actually was telling me, we were on a call last week, so she was telling me how, and I'm with Root Literary, that agency has a lot of agents, they have a lot of authors who do write in different age categories. They write middle grade, YA, and adult, and some of them really made a name in one of them, like YA, and then moved, like they would have multiple, like 4 or 5 books, and then moved to like middle grade or adult. And some have sold a middle grade, and then right before that one like even publishes, they've sold an adult. So I think it really does come down to timing in the industry and whether the agent has a connection to an editor. Like if they know that something can sell right away, then they're not going to like make you wait till you've published 4 books before sending that out. So it's definitely a conversation to have with maybe on the call if you know that you want to do that, just to see that they're open to working a strategy for that. Because I think it does come down to strategy and like, which is so weird. Business publishing is weird.
No, yeah, that's so true. And I think in terms of Jennifer's question, a lot of the holdup in terms of timing is going to come from the publisher, not the agent. And it's not it's not meant to be a holdup, but it's just to say that so for my situation, I have 4 middle grade novels that I've sold at this point. So if I want to sell another middle grade novel, okay, that's in the same track. If I want to sell a YA novel that's, not that much older than the middle grade, it could get, for me, it's not complicated because I don't have an option clause in my last contract. But if you have an option clause in your last contract, you have to be aware of what is your option clause. Like you want it to be as narrow as possible. So when I did have an option in my previous contracts, they said they have the option to be the first ones to view my next middle grade. So it wouldn't apply to YA, but often for courtesy's sake, like if your editor handles, say, both middle grade and YA, it might be courteous to send it to that editor first if you had a YA and give them a limited exclusive, maybe of a month or something before you send it out in broad submission. So that's like something to consider. But with children's and adults, you generally don't have that consideration because they're going to be completely different editors. And so the timing thing is just on, have you written it yet? And as soon as you do, you can go out with that adult because you're not going to have any sort of obligation to your first publisher if you were publishing children's, for example, in the beginning. But let's see, Ginny, on being eclectic, your early days, but did you talk to your agent at all about wanting to publish different things?
No, because I'm not really cut out to write for young children. So
or adults, maybe.
Me neither.
Maybe I might do an adult someday. It's not something that I'm thinking about now. I really don't see myself writing middle grade or picture books. I just don't know that would work out. So no, not really. I'm pretty firmly in the YA space right now, but
yeah, absolutely. Well, we had another question from Gabrielle. Do you need an agent if you plan on self-publishing? And if not, what would it look like to self-publish and find an agent later? And so, Scarlett, you talked a little bit about that earlier, but do you want to just flesh that out more?
That's my Gabby from my street team. They're all talking about ducks in the conversation. I went over there to be like, guys, join this. And then they were like,
I know, tell them to hop on this.
They're in here laughing at me because I'm laughing at them. Ask us questions, y'all.
Yeah, ask us questions.
Gabby is actually writing, and I'm so excited for her. I've got a few people on my street team who are writers, and it's really, really cool. And everyone's really confused by the chat because they're talking about ducks now. You don't need an agent. That's the best part about being self-published is you don't need an agent to self-publish. And the cool part about self-publishing is if you are successful, a lot of things just come your way without you trying. And that's what I have. I didn't really have to do a lot to get my audiobook contract or my foreign rights. I haven't queried anyone for those things. I was trying to get an agent at one point because I was really worried about film and TV rights, because reasons. And but now I don't know what I'll do. I don't know what I'll do if I would get one for that. And that's just like everything you hear is how predatory people can be in that industry. And so that's just like, I don't know. Because I think if you get an offer, finding someone to represent you is not going to be difficult at all. I mean, I don't know. I think that is the one thing that I would not want to negotiate myself. But that's just, I don't want to negotiate it either. That's why I was like, I probably need an agent. But when I started reaching out to agents, they were like, well, first of all, you can't make the money that you make traditionally. And I was like, okay, well, that's not encouraging. And then they were like, they do some subsidiary rights, but not, there are very few agencies that are just solely helping us self-publishers with subsidiary rights. So it's a weird realm, and I think that if more people don't begin to go into that, they're really going to miss out on some things. So
yeah, I will say I asked because I would like to go hybrid at some point, either under this name or a different name, with some adult things. And so I talked to my agent about that, and basically what she said was kind of what you're talking about. So like, she wouldn't represent me, of course, like I would just self-publish as a totally separate thing, and that there'd be no commission on that. But they would handle like the foreign and film stuff, just like my sub agents would handle that. So it's like I'm able to get into that situation, but it's only because I started in traditional, you know what I mean? And so like now my agent is like, I could handle it that way. And I'm like, okay. But yeah, in terms of coming at it the other way and finding someone to just handle the sub rights, I think it's more complicated.
I have some friends who do it. Laura Kalasa, for instance, is someone who is with just an agency that handles her sub rights, and she seems to really like it. So I don't know. I don't know what I'll do. I just kind of wait for things to happen to me, which is probably. I haven't had any trouble. Like, I haven't had any trouble with that yet. So I don't know.
Oh boy,
but they're really cute. I opened my Twitter and like someone was like, Netflix, make this into a TV series, and I was like, someone represent me first.
Yeah, well, if someone is listening out there, give a shout out to UTA, it's my agency, so come and represent Scarlett. Well, if anyone has any other questions, get those in the chat. And I see, there we go. One came up about pen names. So how do you decide whether or not to use one, and how do you go about picking one? I know some people write YA and adult with a different name. That's a good question. I've thought about that as well, since my first books are middle grade. So would I go with a pen name? I know it's a whole lot of different work though. But Scarlett, do you want to talk about that?
I have a pen name, which I think you guys know. Gabby, I got you.
Is it like,
ask more questions, y'all?
Is it officially like out there about your pen name and stuff, or?
I don't know. I mention it in passing, and I notice that the more readers I get, the more things people miss. So, but yeah, I have a pen name, and the reason I did it though is very different from why other people choose a pen name. I chose a pen name because, well, I don't know. I was launching a new aesthetic, something that I felt really represented who I was, and I also needed a way to separate this stuff from like me in my day-to-day life. So I really have a high anxiety, and publishing under my real name caused a lot of mental health problems. And I was like, let's not do that again. And so I published under a pen name, and what it allowed me to do is separate, that negative feedback and just the weird things that I encounter from publishing and being sort of a public figure. And that was very helpful for me. But it also helped me launch that new aesthetic. And Scarlett is a name that I was going to be named anyway, so it really just fit. So that's how I chose my pen name. But I will say that Jennifer L. Armentrout is a good example of someone who took on a pen name. She used to be Jennifer L. Armentrout under her YA stuff, and then she was Jalen under her like NA adult romance. And now she's so well known under the Jennifer L. Armentrout name that they had to do some PR work and combine those names. So the Jalen name wasn't like, people didn't associate her with Jennifer L. Armentrout. So that kind of backfired for her. Right. It was interesting.
Yeah, I think it would be so much work if you actually had two that you were trying to maintain at the same time, or more than that. It would be work, it would be money, because you have to get like, here's a new website for the other one, here are all her social media accounts, and I have to maintain all of this. And I just think that would be so much work. And Jennifer commented, this is probably how I would do it, and this is someone whose career I would really like to emulate, which is V.E. Schwab / Victoria Schwab. And so if I were to do it, maybe my older ones would be like the initials and the same last name or something. So you know it's the same person, but it's just a signal to the middle grade readers when I have like 100 F words in my YA or something. They're like, this is not for you, 9-year-olds. You know, this is a different audience or something. But maybe you could have the same website and just like have different pages for those. I don't know. That's what I would be thinking. But Ginny, Alicia, did you consider going with a pen name initially? I know I thought about it and I just thought it's too much trouble. But did you think about it?
Yeah. So me and my agent actually have had many discussions about what to do with that one story that I really want to get published that is not historical fantasy. That is
But I want to
read paranormal. You guys, so you, Scarlett and Kim, actually read like the first chapter.
Yeah, this is the
When
front.
we first met, like at All
Are you
About
serious?
You. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I know. I feel like, would you call that, is it sci-fi? I mean, because technically you're playing with science, but
Yeah. So they're playing with science. They like
It's so
make
cute.
a
it's like
zombie.
sci-fi.
So it's like
I feel like.
pseudoscience because like I don't
Yeah.
know that much science. So they're using like things. They're like using
I
some
don't
things
think
that
they're
are real
really
and
zombie
things that are
bots.
definitely not real. So
Yeah, let's
I mean, I guess what is Frankenstein? Is that I think that's technically horror though, right?
Frankenstein is called sci-fi too.
It's sci-fi?
It's called- I
And
think
we'll
it's
call
called
it middle grade sci-fi since it's a zombie story.
Yeah.
But yeah, we talked about initially using a pen name, and I like spent like a couple months trying to figure out a pen name. At first, my agent was like, "Well, do you have Welliver is my married name?" And she's like, "Would you want to use your maiden name?" But my maiden name is Beers, like the alcoholic beverage. And I was like, I don't know how many like parents are going to buy a book for their children that has the word beers on it.
You should just play on like
Bears.
play on May Shelley or something. Like you're
Yeah.
Marielle Shelley.
Then
Or
she would
you're,
just have to write Frankenstein retellings.
that would be cool though. I don't know.
Yeah. So we're still I think we landed on a pen name, and then she moved over to Root Literary, who's like I said, many of their authors actually do write in different age categories. V.E. Schwab is one of them, Victoria Schwab. But they have a couple others who don't do a pen name.
Yeah.
So now we're having the discussion of like, okay, do we use a pen name or not? So I think it really up to like if the book that's on submission right now sells first. But if it doesn't, and we go out with this other book, if that one sells, then I don't know. It's really like once I actually get the contract, then I guess I'll decide.
Yeah, that would be tough. I wish I could just do it with my real name for everything, and
That's
like
what I
we'll
want
see.
to do.
I mean, that's like
Do
Neil Gaiman, Brandon Sanderson does that.
Yeah.
He had middle grade.
Meg Cabot does
If
that.
men can do it, we can
But
do
then
it.
again, I kind of think about their work, and I'm like, there's nothing really. I don't know, especially like Brandon Sanderson's very clean and like all of his.
Kim's like, I don't want to be clean.
Well, no, I mean my stuff is.
I
clean,
read
but
your adult.
I use a lot of language, and I do. Yes. Well,
The
so
thing
yeah,
I
it
read
would
on
not-
desk at work.
It would not be appropriate. That's for sure. But, anyway, I don't know. But Ginny, did you consider having a pen name at all, or?
I did not consider having a pen name, but I did go with 3 names, like most serial killers do. Because I will tell you why.
Is that a knife you're holding? Like, what are
This
you?
is it's a pen. It's a pen. And we're going to talk about my
Like,
not
drive
pen
my
name,
point
but-
Oh
home.
my gosh,
Right.
no.
My mother writes she has 20 like historical fiction novels, and they're middle grade. They're all middle grade, and they're like award winners, and they're very, it's classy, well written stuff. But her name that she used, which was her first and last name, is the same as someone who writes hardcore erotica. So So whenever people would Google her name, first name and last name, they would get this mix of middle grade historical fiction and like serious stuff that would make like Scarlet blush. So it was like,
I don't know about that.
like you should really consider using 3 names so that nobody will get you confused with
That's
anybody
hilarious.
else. That is a good idea. So I did
Knowing
go with
what
3
your
names.
mother writes, I'm just like, oh my God.
It's really funny. I mean, and it's driven her crazy for years because like when you Google her name, like hers comes up, but then this other one comes up like right under it. It's like it's even spelled the same. It's exactly the same.
That's
that.
awesome.
Yeah, she's like, not me.
There's another Scarlett St. Clair who writes really weird shit online, and
Wait,
yeah, yes,
I
and,
really are, man.
but I knew this is how much faith I had in myself. I was like, that's not even going to pop up eventually when I'm Googled, and it doesn't.
I'm sure she's amazing wherever she is. If you're out there, other Scarlett St. Clair, I'm sure we love your stuff and you're amazing.
I don't really know anything about you, but I've definitely overtaken the Google algorithm, and I apologize. Change your name.
That is one great thing about my name is nobody else seems to have my name. It's great. Like I get every social media account in my name. Like, yes, thank you. No extra ones or no author there for me. So that's great. But okay, so yes, if anyone has questions, get those in there. I did promise we would talk a little bit about agency contracts in this episode, so we can touch on that really briefly. I broke out the contract and everything.
Oh God.
But no, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but just for people who might be wondering what should or maybe should not be included in an agency agreement. And I know some agencies don't even do official agreements. So did yours have an official agreement that you signed for Ginny?
Mine did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, so one thing, obviously, they're going to outline like, what is this agreement? What are they representing you for? And they'll usually talk about the work, which is like the book that they're signing you for, and that's included. And then if they're going to just be representing you basically for everything, you know, from here on out, like your whole career, that will be kind of outlined in there. So that's the first thing, just like, what are they representing? And then, so bearing that in mind, if they're like, hey, I'm going to represent you for everything ever. Well, you want to make sure there's a termination clause, right? So you want to make sure
Can I fire you?
Tells you how you can get out of the agreement or how they can end the agreement, because you can, either party can end it. So make sure that there is something that stipulates like some kind of reasonable term, like upon written notice within 30 or 60 days, either party can end this agreement. And that's essentially all that's required. I know for me, I've talked to other people who've had agreements where it was like, it gave like a term, like this agreement's going to last for like a year or 2 years. And then after that, you could terminate it. I find that really sketchy. And I don't know if that's something that's like common. It wasn't for me. And I wouldn't sign something like that if it said that you had to kind of be with this person for a certain amount of time. What do y'all think about that?
Mine was just what you described. It was, you know, within a certain number of days with either party could terminate it. So I've not, and I looked because I had offers from several different agents. So they had, you know, sent agreements from a couple of different agencies, and I didn't see anything like that in any of the ones that I looked at.
I love Ginny is over here like not so secret badass being like, I had offers from
I didn't look at like
agents.
no 20 or 30 or like 4. There might be
I got to decide who I wanted.
I
didn't see anything like that in any of those.
Yeah, I would be real wary. I don't know, Alicia, what would you say about yours?
Mine's the same. Yeah, it just like outlines that either party can terminate if you give like 30 days written notice. So I've had two agency contracts, because when I was signed, we were with one agency and now we're with Root Literary, and both were basically the same. The only difference, because I reread them before this we went live, the only difference was one of them the first one had a stipulation, or like, I guess it's not called a stipulation, a clause about self-publishing.
Ah,
What did it say?
yeah,
So,
what did it say?
The first contract said that if I were to sell anything that my agent worked on with me, that she would be due the 15% of any monies I made self-publishing that work. And the one I'm in now says specifically that they would not take money from self-publishing.
Interesting.
So they are putting, at least in my 2 contracts, they've put some language about self-publishing because I think authors are going hybrid more often.
Yeah, because they can make money.
Yeah, I know. And actually, it would be, I should probably get mine updated or something because it's not officially laid out in my contract. And it's probably because I did it back in 2015 when I first signed with my agent. And it wasn't, I mean, self-publishing was really big then, but I don't know if there were as many people going hybrid. So yeah. So those are some big ones. Of course, they're going to outline what the commissions are. And we already talked about standard things for that, like when they will pay you and all of that. But the main thing for me is just make sure it has a really clear termination clause and that you're not signing on for any certain amount of time is what I would say. I guess Leah, self-publishing for 100% of the profit. Yes, although I would say that I think there are considerations to be had on either side, especially depending on what you write.
Leah's biased because she's my friend.
And as someone who writes for like middle grade stories, I think that with most of the market being teachers and librarians, it's going to be a lot easier to get those books into the hands of readers through TradPub. But also, I would really want to have that kind of guaranteed upfront money in that case, just because I know for me, especially if you write something that's kind of niche or more literary or might not sell like super well in self-publishing, it can be nice to know that, hey, here's this offer. I'm going to have X amount of money up front, as opposed to just putting it out there and be like, I might never make any money on this ever.
I've done that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
so I would be very hesitant to self-publish middle grade because I think that you would need. There is someone who's done it recently. Kim, you sent me that article, and they have a deal with Netflix, but they built a business around it, and I think that is the key to their success.
Is this the guy that like started a podcast that turned into a book series that is now going to be a TV series? Okay, never mind.
There's always
another one.
There's another one.
The people that tend to, the typical story of someone who does well self-publishing middle grade are these people that you see like touring the country and bringing like physical print books to schools, and somehow they're getting into schools and they're selling, hundreds of these school visits, and that's how they're doing it. I'm like, wow, that's really not feasible for me. Like I can't travel the country, and trying to get into schools is difficult anyway, especially if the book hasn't been reviewed by the trade publications that the librarians and teachers are looking at necessarily. It just makes it more difficult. So yeah, I think it really depends. But if you're absolutely like if you're writing something that you think is going to do really well with self-publishing, then there's so many benefits to that, but there's also a lot of risk involved, because you don't know how much you're going to make. Yeah.
So we're really talking about like for self-publishing, like middle grade, because you need to get into schools and stuff. So you need like teachers and librarians to want to read your book and give it to kids. And then like what the books that Scarlett has, which is like great romance, but like retelling. So there's like a little niche. I wonder about young adult. Like, is young adult doing well in self-publishing? Because a lot of YA authors, I feel like, do that many school visits. So like, Ginny, would you, I don't know, think of YA as something you could self-publish and do well? I don't know. Does anyone have thoughts?
I don't know that I could, at least not right now, because like I said, I just don't know enough about how to market it and all of that stuff that is like overwhelmingly intense. If you want to really make money at it and do it well, obviously.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the genre you're writing. So if you're writing like the fantasy romance, then you can do sort of supernatural or anything that really falls under that fantasy romance umbrella. For YA, I think you can do it pretty successfully. But I mean, and I run in a different sphere, and we're all wanting like steamy romance. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm in a Slack group with a bunch of successful YA self-published authors. So, but
Oh yeah,
they do
you were just
specifically-
saying Jennifer L. Armament, isn't she?
Well, Jennifer L. Armentrout, yeah, she has successfully
YA.
self-published, but I would say that she did a new adult, which is a category that some people don't recognize. But yeah, I mean, Audrey Gray is one, and she actually lives here in Oklahoma. She's in Edmond, and she's successfully self-published YA. So yeah, it can be done. I don't think like Jenny. I think the genre that she writes needs traditional publishing behind it. Honestly,
Yeah.
I really just depends.
Fantasy.
Well, and because like self-publishing, from everything I hear, is about series. Like it's really helpful if you're writing a series, and if you're doing a standalone, it can be harder to build momentum for something.
We have different demands in the self-publishing industry. That's definitely true.
Yeah.
It's kind of overwhelming.
Did you always know that A Touch of Darkness was going to be a whole series when you wrote it?
Yeah. I knew it would be I didn't know where it was going to go, but I knew it was going to be a series. Everything I write is a series. It's really hard for me to write standalones, but I wanted the book to be able to stand alone in case it sucked. In case it didn't do good.
Right.
And then I was going to be like,
bye.
Well, yeah, I think that's a big thing. Like pretty much every single person I've heard that's done really well in self-pub is a series. And I tend to write standalone, so I think it would be. But yeah, that's really
hopefully that answers
yes, the question
Jennifer's question, because she said she has an adult mystery series thinking about self-helping.
I think I've heard both. I've heard mysteries can do well, but also there's a lot of room for adult mysteries and traditional too.
Yeah, I think she said it was based on, it was kind of like the what was it, oh my gosh, what is that Netflix series? And it's also
I think
a
I know
book
what
series.
you're talking about. Yes.
But there's a million
Peregrine.
mystery series that are based on book series, and I've seen all of them. So
Oh yeah, okay, cozy. Yeah, cozy mysteries. Cozy mysteries have a place everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know, I mean, especially if you're wanting to try hybrid, it wouldn't hurt to try trad pub first for that guaranteed, because I mean, that's the thing is like in self-publishing, I feel like it's all about the exposure, just getting people to see you, because there are millions of people that are on Amazon as self-published, and like just trying to get people to see that you are there, like getting that exposure initially is the thing. And there are some people that break out like Scarlett, and there are probably many, many people who are never seen. Whereas with trad, like if you do get a deal, it's like, here's this amount of money that I'm going to give you. You can take it or leave it. And if you don't think it's good, you can self-publish. Or if you want to later go out and then get 70% of the royalties or whatever with self-publishing, then you can do that at a later point. But I don't know. Yeah, I think it just depends on what you're writing, what's going to be best to start with. But we had a couple questions come in from Gabrielle. How do you go about building a following and promoting as a self-published author? That's a big question. But
I feel like that needs like a whole hour in and of itself. I will be taking notes.
Yeah, I need to watch that and not like be on it. So
it would be the Scarlet Hour.
Yeah, it would take me a long time to be like, this is what I did.
Which I think we should totally do in a future episode.
Yeah, maybe we should put that on.
Maybe
we should do promotion for our next episode. Like our whole next episode can be about promotion from both like self-publishing and traditional publishing point of view or something. Should we do that? Because we're like approaching an hour, so it'll probably take us an hour to talk about that whole topic. So maybe we should.
That would be a really good one though, because I think that's a question I get a lot from people.
And all three of you, I feel like, do different types of marketing, and then have between Ginny and Kim have different. I mean, middle grade versus YA, definitely different, but because you're hitting different audiences.
Yeah, the type of marketing that you're going to do for those is totally different. So,
and then they're totally different compared to the fantasy romance that Scarlett markets.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, maybe we'll do a whole episode on that next time. But there's a shorter question Gabrielle also had. How do you find and trust a designer to do your cover? So we'll give that one to Scarlett too.
I followed the writing community for a really long time, but prior to deciding to self-publish, and Macaulay Smeltzer was someone who was self-publishing at the time and doing pretty well, and she had mentioned that she used Regina Wamba in her cover, in her actual book. You credit your cover designer there in the copyright page, and so I reached out to her. And then I met Emily, and she's also one of Macaulay's followers, and she's a great designer. And so I just looked inside the book covers to find a good designer that I liked.
Yeah, that's cool. And so of course it's real different for the traditional publishing. Generally, we'll get the publisher will find the illustrator, and we get sketches, and we can kind of give our feedback and do that whole thing. But yeah, so Ginny, you just really recently had that whole situation, and you just revealed your cover within the past couple of weeks, right? So how was that for you?
It was really exciting. I mean, I was kind of in on the process from the beginning. So I'd been seeing sort of the preliminary design. I got, an aesthetic board to look at way early. And then we had preliminary designs, and it really didn't change a lot after that. The cover that we ended up with was very similar to the first real sort of look at it that I got. It was just, more cleaned up and polished and that sort of thing. But we knew as soon as we saw that version that that's the one, that's what we wanted to go with. So it was really exciting to watch it kind of come together.
I remember when you sent us they had 5 or 6 options for you. And I remember
Are we supposed to say that?
You really liked it. I don't know if we're supposed to say that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. We can say that.
Secrets
I really loved the one. It was great.
Yeah. I think they had sent a lot that were variations on things that I sort of felt like I'd seen before, like Spanish moss hanging from trees and things like that. And we sort of we're hoping to go in a different direction. And I think the way it ended up being coming together was perfect. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. The alligator. I love that you've taken the alligator too as your mascot for the book.
Listen, I don't know if y'all know this, but I'm obsessed with alligators.
Is that real though?
I have an alligator.
I know. Y'all don't know how many photos of alligators I have taken. I love alligators. They're my favorite.
Have you pet an alligator? Or are you I don't know.
Well, they bite, Alicia. They bite.
I know.
Have you gone to swamp tours? And
I have. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Me too. And the one thing I remember is why am I seeing Confederate flags? Is someone going to shoot me in the face? That's the main thing I remember.
Where did you do this?
The alligators
I went on a swamp tour.
never shoot anybody.
The alligators shoot people. So
they never shoot anybody.
No, but the people who live on just one person had that little flag, and I was like, oh dear, this is scary. Not the gators.
There's this random apple on my new cover for King of Battle and Blood, and it doesn't mean anything, but I'm so excited for people to ask me what does the apple mean, or to just be no, I don't want to. I just want it to be a huge mystery. I want people to think there's an apple in this book. Because it doesn't mean a fucking thing. And I was like, that's hilarious to me.
Represent the innocence of Eve or something. And
no,
there was
nothing.
No apple in Twilight, but it was on the cover, and then they put it in the movie.
Why was there an apple on that cover?
Because it's forbidden fruit.
That really was the forbidden fruit. Yeah, that was really.
Wow.
Jenny is not impressed.
Listen, I read that book a long time ago. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Well, if anybody has any last minute questions, get that in. Gabby, get your questions in now.
Gabby's my favorite.
We've decided now we're going to be all about promotion next week. So save up those questions.
And I will say I did get the experience kind of what y'all go through with your cover design with the Bookish box because I got sent my hardcover design.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it was the coolest thing I've ever
That is
seen in my
cool.
life.
I thought you said the Book of Spock at first. I was like, what are
Yes.
you talking about?
Book of
That's her new
Spock.
project.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
that's your new book.
It's a fanfic.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Racing Star Trek.
That's cool. That's exciting.
Ooh, racy
Yeah.
Star Trek. I bet that's
Wait.
out there.
Have you,
It is.
have you-
Totally
have you
out there.
seen that cover that's going to be in the Bookish box, or no?
I've seen the sketch for it, and it's beautiful. It is the coolest
Wait, have
thing
we
because
seen it though?
huh?
Have we seen that?
Oh
sketch?
no, I haven't sent it to you.
What?
Rude.
What is happening right now?
I'm
Oh my
trying to be
God.
more secretive, y'all, and it's not working.
Okay, well, you
We are
have
super secretive.
Yeah, I definitely didn't out Ginny on a live YouTube.
Oh Lord, yes. Gabrielle is famous now. That is right. She is the representative of the street team. So
Abby is famous. She made stickers for my street team, and it is the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
oh, hey,
Awesome.
do you have I've seen these little like bookmarks or magnetic bookmarks, but they're like little cartoon versions of each character. And they
Yes.
come in, like these little packs. Are you gonna do that
I
in your
love
bookstore?
those.
Because they're cute.
I do what people ask me to do usually.
I just asked you for it, so
Ginny, you should do one of an alligator.
Yes,
Yeah,
that exists.
every character is an alligator, or some of the characters have like missing bites out of them because
The alligator
Oh.
in my book, his name is Willie Nelson.
Oh my god, I love it.
I love it. Yes,
I love him.
Willie
He's my
Nelson.
favorite.
Oh,
Now you need an alligator.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, well, before we go, why don't we go around and each one of us can give like our piece of advice or thing that we've learned relating to our topic, which is agents and agency contracts. I already know mine because my piece of advice, as I said, is that just remember, no matter what, you are the guide of your career. You're in charge of your career. It is up to you to determine where your career goes, and it's not up to anyone else. So, like, your agent is going to help you, but
That's
you
just
need
going to be
in charge
Kim
of
Sim.
it.
She says every week.
That's what I
Yeah.
say every week.
I know.
You need to be in charge of it. Like, you need to be proactive, because the minute you let someone else handle it, or the minute you just sit back and you're like, good things are happening to me, I hope they continue happening to me, that's not like
That's
you
what
need
I
to
do.
yes, you need to take charge of your career regardless of if you even have an agent or not. That's all I'm saying. Scarlett, on to you.
You don't need an agent. My advice is you don't need an agent. My advice is more so don't let this idea of, oh, I have to have an agent first stop you from just writing your book or even publishing. I mean, I did not have success with my first book, and there are a lot of traditional authors who didn't have success with their first book either. And I am way more popular than a lot of traditional authors. So do you?
Yes, it worked out. Ginny, what would you say?
I would say, even if I know how hard it is to get that agent, and I know that a lot of people have been working like to get an agent for a long time, and that's so much the goal. We put so much sort of like energy behind that, to not just necessarily jump at the first agent offer that you get. I got an offer from an agent who was wonderful. I mean, I think would have been great. But I went back and actually spoke to someone who I had, had already had the full at that same time. And I said, hey, I've got this offer, would you like to speed it up a little bit and let me know what you think? Because I'm going to get back to her like, and I ended up, finding someone that I was really, really, really happy with. So I think just if you do get that call or that email that, hey, let's set up a call email, just take a moment and sort of like breathe before you jump up and down and say, yes, yes. Oh my God, I'll do anything.
I'll sell my soul for you.
Anything you want. Yes.
If only I had a soul. Elisa, what would you say?
My advice would be to be open. You don't know where your right agent is coming from. My agent, I actually never queried. I had queried a colleague of her hers, and that colleague emailed me and let me know that she thought that her colleague, which turned out to be my agent, would maybe be a better fit. So, and she was right. And so I ended up with the agent that was more excited about not just that book, but like everything, all the ideas that I brought to her on the call. And so yeah, doesn't always have to be from a cold query, just kind of be open to like the universe connecting you to your person, your agent.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thanks to everyone who joined us tonight, and join us next Monday. We'll be talking about promotion. I'll just leave you with a skeleton wave. Thanks, everyone.